Yeah, so my name is Nick Mastronardi. I'm the founder CEO of POLCO. What POLCO does is we improve how residents of communities and their community leaders communicate, seek, and provide input on important topics. Um, our team now is we've actually merged or acquired a company called the National Research Center. So we've done some M&A, which presents its own sort of challenges and opportunities. But we service hundreds of cities across nearly 48 states using technology to improve communications and helping cities get resident sentiment data to do better performance management, become high performing organizations.
Nice. Okay. So tell me, how does one get into this sort of business? What launches you on the path to go, you know what startup I want to create?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, for all the people out there who randomly want to become a civic engagement platform,
They're
this was
lining
always the
up.
story. The story for us was co-founder Alex and myself were in the military, so we kind of appreciated the importance of public policy, and then also like technology, Amazon, and he was at Google for a little while, and just felt there was a need for a better communication tool, and somewhere between the ease of a online engagement with the referenceability of a traditional poll or survey, and we wanted to deliver a verified online engagement experience. Read the book Wisdom of Crowds and realized that there's power in collective intelligence, and how can we harness that for cities? And then, one, two, three, now you're up to a bunch of cities, and next thing you know, your life is dominated by it. But you've got a great team of people kind of working with you on it. So just slowly how it came about.
Okay. And what size is the company now? How old is the company, and how many folks do you have there?
Officially left Amazon May 2015. So that puts the company about 4.5 years old. We are nearly 30 employees in the company. And we are, maybe we'll talk about this more, but we're pretty geographically distributed. So not all under the same roof, but yeah, across the country, we have 30 employees, and I think that's probably between like 8 states.
Wow. Okay. And that is a popular topic in this day and age, remote work, the flexibility that it offers, the challenges. Clearly, you've done some sort of cost benefit analysis such that you've employed this method. Tell me about your thinking there. What are the pluses and minuses for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a good team brings a lot of different diversity and skill sets and perspectives. And the likelihood of finding them all in one place together that they can all access in a way that's conducive for productivity and high quality of life is pretty small. Then add on the additional constraints of a new company with operating costs, trying to keep footprint and burn rates low. So we're based, I'm in Middleton, Wisconsin right now on the west side, and high quality of life, low cost of living. It helped us really succeed to get to where we are now. But we have people in Minneapolis who are from there who bring really valuable skills to the team. And if we forced relocation on everybody, I think that would have had negative, not that being remote is all flowers, but I think there's trade-offs. In our case, the calculus probably leans towards preserving and optimizing in a decentralized environment.
Okay. And you painted the picture initially. Well, here we are in lovely Middleton, Wisconsin, routinely voted one of America's top 10 places to live. And that's a subtle plug. I'm waiting for my check from the Chamber of Commerce. So even at that low cost of living, all these sorts of benefits, it is still for you, for your purposes, hey, it's an even lower cost is if nobody has to move at all, right? So
Yeah.
That's kind of some of the calculation that you've done there.
Yeah, I mean, there's some additional cost there because what it implies, and we have different clusters. I wouldn't say it's like everybody's remote at their own home. So for instance, our team in Boulder is 12 people who, I mean, sometimes they work from home too, but they have a central office place. And so you just need kind of like critical mass of different teams together. So it's not completely decentralized. There's clusters. The other thing too, I think that jumps in here is because of that, then we probably spend more on internal team travel than others. Actually, I'm just getting back from a team retreat in Estes Park, Colorado, and half of the goal of that meeting is just to get people culture and comfortable with each other. We also get some work done, but yeah, there are some additional costs to it.
Sure, sure. And by the way, I have been to Estes Park and it is gorgeous. Please invite me to your next team retreat.
Yeah, sounds good. We got lucky on the weather. It was amazing.
Nice, nice. With a distributed team, with remote folks, what are some of the other things that people should be aware of?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're the expert on this, but I recently had read Thomas Edison, the biography of Thomas Edison, Wizard of Menlo Park, and it sounded like a lot of the key inspirations and innovations, like they're big things that occurred during some of these like intense after hour meetings that take place. So even if everybody's at the same place, but everybody's just kind of on their own routine standard hours, you may not get there. And so I think what's important is, that you use good technology, right? I mean, you use some chat platforms, email, drive, sharing. I mean, we have a whole suite of SaaS tools that help facilitate our communications. But then when you get together, you actually have the opportunity because, I mean, we're all stayed in this big lodge, had some beer and some wine and breakfast. But, when that hour, you have the ability to kind of get into conversations you might not otherwise ever get into. And so it has the potential, I think, to bring teams together. But I think you have to, when you bring people together, make sure that the opportunity exists for some of those interactions and deeper level connections. And so, I don't know. I mean, we're not optimized at it. It's new, but it's important because clearly our biggest asset to our company are our people, and making sure that they are, well connected with each other is extremely important.
Right. And I hear you saying two things there, one of which is connection, clearly an important thing. We want people to be able to communicate well, feel psychologically safe with one another, sharing opinions, these sorts of things, build rapport. And then I also hear, listen, we want to give innovation every opportunity. And yes, we stay connected as best we can through our Google Suite or whatever. But hey, if we just spend some time hanging out together, we are giving ourselves that much more of a leg up, more of an opportunity to come up with, hey, what about kind of moments. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay. So here's a question that I have, and I don't mean to dive too deeply necessarily into the nuts and bolts of your business model itself, but when you think of how we operate the business, how it is that we serve customers, how it is that we generate revenue, when you think of that machine, can you give an example of a challenge that you may be facing now or have faced recently, and how you're addressing that, something that you could share to another founder?
Yeah, for sure. So for instance, if you take when you're working with cities, you may see that a city manager has the, spend authority up to $25,000 or $50,000, without council approval. But even though that's how it may be written, in reality, so council doesn't feel like things are thrust upon them, a city manager usually brings things to council, anything maybe over $1,000.
Okay.
That's a subtlety that would take a long time to learn if it weren't for the fact that we've got some great diversity on our team. We've got young, we've got older folks, we've got tech folks, we've got former industry professionals. And so I think that learning some of those subtleties, that some of the folks on our team, having been former city officials in lots of places in key positions, help us realize quickly, confidently, not only then bring that and translate that into product launch, maybe something like a free trial or a freemium or a stripped down initial version to help a city understand the benefits over, pure online unverified tools, And then that also helps us feel confident in translating that business model need to investors for our operating strategy. So if you can kind of bring a diverse team together with good communications, and you facilitate things that change your product and all of the pieces together, I think. I don't know, I could probably come up with other examples too, and that's one just recently we've been wrestling with.
Sure. And it sounds like what you're saying has been helpful to you and your team. A couple of things. One, subject matter expertise. And I would think probably anybody starting in any space is going to need somebody on board that knows the space. But not just subject matter expertise, but also I'm hearing the diversity of experience and perspectives on the team. If you have everybody who's super homogenous, yeah, we're all in the same classes at college, we're all dorm buddies or whatever, that's less likely to provide you, going back to innovation, different ideas, these sorts of things, that's less likely to provide you with different levels of thought, different types of experiences that clearly are benefiting you and the team now.
Yeah, I think so. You've got to have that. Usually it comes with, ethnic diversity, age diversity, all those things. But yeah, in our case, there's challenges too, because the people use different language. I think we're a communications company. We're trying to bridge communications in communities. But our biggest thing as our company is, bridging our own internal communications. And it's not just making the connections, but it's also using the same language, for our engineers and SaaS product experts. They're referring to things that in different language that, longtime city officials are using. And so, but if you can get that worked out, just like we tell cities, if you can get that communication worked out, you get a more robust, vibrant, growing community among you.
Yeah. So as a reformed engineer, as I tend to refer to myself, yes, my degree's in computer science, but no one has been unwise enough to have me do any engineering for a long time. But as a reformed engineer, I can absolutely attest to the fact that different disciplines on the same team may be speaking a radically different subset of English at any given point in time. And especially that's going to be an issue when you're talking outside of the company as well, customer-facing communication, those sorts of things. So yeah, I hear where you're coming from on that one.
Yep. I would say, yeah, it's tech versus non-tech. But then I also feel really blessed in that I just happen to be of the age that I would call myself a non-digital native. All right. I'm an engineer too. I wrote code while at Amazon. But I would call myself a non-digital native, right? Facebook didn't hit Notre Dame until the year after I'd left. Most of our communications with friends and others were in analog at that point. So kind of in this weird cusp where I think my co-founder and I are in a good position to help bridge that communication divide, not just between tech, non-tech, but also in younger digital non-natives with digital natives.
Understood. I think you and I probably both remember back when, if you wanted to call a friend, you had to go to the room of the house where the phone was.
Yeah. And that's ended up being, that's where a lot of key growth, software niches are these days, is in those places that we're slow to adapt because of demographics or whatever. And so I think it's an important skill is to, facilitate that translation between those different pieces of your team.
Yeah, it is. And when you go to found the startup that completely eliminates the fax machine from the planet, please let me know. I will be there. I will do whatever you need. I'm on board with that effort.
Yeah. Check there's a good app for faxing from your phone, so you can scan and fax. It simplifies it, but I forget, Fax File or something, Fax Fox, I forget what it is.
Nice. I'm glad that exists. Okay, so we've talked about a few of these in particular. When you hear the phrase "people challenge," what's something that comes to mind that you've had to grapple with?
There's a lot actually, and you've probably done a bunch of these, and maybe a lot are similar for early companies. So One, for instance, is our company. I mean, there's big pivots and there's small pivots for a company. Even with small pivots, those have large repercussions on non-founding employees because it changes, even small changes now result in potentially huge divergence of where the company could be
Sure.
in a year and 2 years. Our growth can be so big and so fast in tech that even a small pivot now in a short amount of time can cause a wide divergence. And that wide divergence of where it looks like the company might be going to, I think, can have like some jarring or stressful impacts to employees. Like, hey, I know what I'm doing now. These small changes can drastically change what I'll be doing then. Is what I like going to be preserved? And so I think I haven't been great at that, but looking at it from that lens can help make sure that, because you also have to walk the balance and like, you want to provide the information about all these changes to your employees so they're on the same page and don't feel left out. But if you also share those without the right context, then it can be like anxiety inducing. So you want to share, but you also want to comfort. I don't know. I mean, we're not experts at it, but that's a challenge we're wrestling with now.
Yeah, there are, in my experience, no experts at that thing. That's just hard. What I hear you saying there is, listen, we would love to be able to share every piece of information, everything we're trying to predict, all of these sorts of things with everybody on the team, because we're not hoarding information just because it's fun. But we also appreciate that, hey, wow, as founders especially, we deal with some scary stuff. And this is not a well-established industry. That's why we're in it. That's why we're a startup. And there's an element there of us trying to dampen some of that oscillation and trying to remove some of the fear factor that could be represented by the breadth of things that we're aware of and dealing with. So you're trying to find that balance between, absolutely, we value transparency, and we also don't want everyone going through the emotional roller coaster that we as founders are.
Yeah. And I would say, though, there's one other benefit if you do it right, is that I think your team's got a lot of great input too that can inform that strategy. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there's a great couple of authors, Chip and Dan Heath, who've written a number of great books, and one of them is called Switch: How to Change When Change is Hard. And they talk about a lot of great anecdotes, a lot about research that goes into the psychology of organizational change, these sorts of things. And they really highlight the importance of, hey, you can make rational decisions all you want, but there's this enormous impact of emotion on how change occurs. And even if you come into the room and share with the entire team, hey, here's this really well thought out, totally rational explanation about why we are changing our business into hot dog cart sales, there is going to be an enormous emotional impact there on the folks that are dealing with that. And I hear you saying, listen, any kind of change we make, any sort of pivot, that has the potential for major ramifications down the road that we may not even consider today. And if I just joined the company 6 months ago, what impact does that have on my future? Yeah, that could be scary.
Yeah.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so I want to be cognizant of your time because I promised I wouldn't take too much of your morning, and I already have. But if there are any other nuggets of information that you would want to share for future founders or bits about your business that you would want to come to light that we haven't touched on, I want to give you a venue for that in our closing moments.
Yeah, I guess we talked a little bit about some of our recent challenges now that we're a bigger team, but I mean, you started the conversation off with what would I like to have told myself 3 years ago when the company was even earlier. And so for those who aren't wrestling with these later stage kind of people challenges, in the earlier stages, I would say there's a clear break point that happens when the team becomes big enough that the most important thing for you to do is make sure that the team is operating correctly. In the early years, I just need to get something done. It's how hard you can surge.
Right.
And so just to, and there's a lot of value in being nimble. So I would recommend, it sounds like it's hard because you've got a small team in those early years. Stick with it. Those are important times to make sure you persevere and make the right pivots before you pour the people on to make the company really take off. And I would say too that to help you stay in that stage and refine and be efficient before you scale, that you look, if you're going to be a founder, you've got to be extremely passionate. And the number of people that you don't already know, and the likelihood that they are passionate and will become aligned with you on that, they're out there. Don't get me wrong, but really try to do as much as you can. I think with contracted work or whatever, before you bring people on the team, and definitely before you allocate equity, because it's a marriage with those people at that point, to make sure you don't show up with deadwood on your cap table, and that your operating environment is fun and productive for everybody. And so I'm not saying insert delays, but if you have the opportunity between the two before you do that, make sure you contract and test out the relationship right. And that way, when you grow, you won't have these fissures and faults that could end up wrecking your business in that second stage. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's too theoretical, but in addition to what we talked about, I just wanted to share that for earlier stages.
Oh, that's great, I think, because recently I was watching a video from the Y Combinator Startup School. They have a lot of resources for free online. They interviewed the founders of Stripe and Pinterest, and they were talking about your first 10 hires. And they're going over the importance of, these are critical for the future of the company, because you are going to be bringing on all these people who are going to have an impact on the ongoing culture of what we're creating here. So what I hear you saying is be aware of that. And if you're still in these early stages of navigating some potentially muddy waters, then what can you do with contract with outsource options that aren't going to mean bringing somebody on board, all the investment that entails, as well as the impact on company culture? I think what you're saying there makes total sense.
Yeah. I know those are tough years. You got to do whatever you can to survive. But part of that survival is making sure that you're ready to scale when it happens.
Right. Well, Nick, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy morning, especially coming right off of the road. And hopefully you and I will get a chance to talk again soon. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, sounds good, Keith. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Hey, you too.